physician at the Sloan Kettering Medical Center, Cancer Center in New York City. And she has written a book with a great title, exactly what has happened, Panic Attack, Playing Politics with Science in the Fight Against COVID-19. She is an MD, obviously, and regular medical contributor for Fox News. So now that you've written about it and obviously thought about it and diagnosed it, how do you explain the panic attack over COVID?
It's been astounding to me that regardless of how low the case levels get, how few the hospitalizations are, and how few people are dying every day from this virus, people are still wanting to stay in a perpetual state of lockdown. And I don't know what their end point is. Like I've repeatedly said, the emergency at this point is over, and it is time to be moving forward. Yet we're not hearing that being declared. And I thought perhaps that, it was all anti-Trump, and that was one of the biggest failures of the pandemic, was that people could not actually come together and work together. I think one of the biggest things that we saw was even when President Biden was crediting the vaccination efforts, the one thing that he did not do was credit President Trump. For someone who said that he wants to create unity in a country, how can anyone not credit the sole action of providing funding to allow parallel manufacturing of these vaccines as they are undergoing investigation? That single move is what has created the space that we're in right now, and that is getting us through this pandemic. And it's just, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know. I know that, we were in the midst of trade war conversations with China at the time, and so maybe people didn't want to ruffle their feathers with China. But I think that people are going to now at this point have to take a real hard look and realize that you can't blindly trust some of these foreign adversaries at this point, and we need to be able to protect our country much better in the future.
Did you wear a mask outdoors the entire time?
I have always been of the mindset that, common sense being common sense, that viral transmission outdoors is unlikely to occur. And one of the first things that I did with my family in early March was to make sure that we were outside as much as possible, getting vitamin D, because that is essential to your physical and mental health. And I chose not to wear masks. If I had to wear a mask, if I was being told to wear a mask while I was outdoors, I was choosing not to go to those places. I do recall being ridiculed as I was walking alone on a path one day by a woman who was walking the opposite direction from me because she was wearing her mask. And that's the interesting part. She can ridicule me because she doesn't agree with me. But I have no problem with the fact that she wants to wear a mask. I don't think it's necessary, but I also didn't feel that I needed to criticize her. And that was something that, became very obvious throughout this entire pandemic, was that if you disagreed with someone, you canceled them. You told them they were wrong. They were anti-science. They were killing people. There was all this verbiage that is what created more of that panic and fear and incited anger.
I can only say that woman is lucky I was not with you at that time. Among other things, I would have noted, the woman you just ridiculed is a medical doctor. What are you? And then if she would have said nothing, I would have filled in the blank. Moron. This is what we have been living with. And I just want to remind my listeners that I, not a doctor, but a possessor of common sense and some knowledge, knew how silly wearing masks outdoors was. And I told the city of Glendale, California, from where I broadcast and where I am now, that I will be outdoors at the following hours. Please arrest me. But unfortunately, it did not occur. But it was pure common sense. It has been another disappointment of mine that so many of my fellow Americans panic so easily. It's part of the reason your book is so important. I remind my listeners the book is Panic Attack. Nicole Saphier is an MD. She is at the Sloan Kettering Medical Center in New York City. What do you think about giving kids the vaccine?
So the vaccine has created a very important space in the sense that had we not been given a vaccine and we were to get to herd immunity naturally, we would have had much more death. I do believe that the states that focused on vaccinating the highest risk played it right. I think, as we saw, those over the age of 65 had about a 77 times higher rate of hospitalization than that of children. When it comes to the vaccine in young kids, for me, as I had mentioned, I don't believe that this virus is an emergency for them and should not necessarily be considered under the emergency use authorization. I do believe that having a safe and efficacious vaccine for all ages is important, but I don't think that it needs to be done with the same urgency and have the same universal campaign as that with the older adults. I understand there is a reason to vaccinate the younger population because, yes, by vaccinating the vulnerable, you're saving the most amount of lives, and by decreasing viral transmission in the younger population, you're reducing that risk of more variants forming. However, again, I think that we have gotten ourselves to a very good place in this country, and I think that any parent who wants to consider vaccinating their children, it should be under a full FDA approval, and it should not be done with such urgency because the emergency is over.
Bless you. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your book, Dr. Nicole Saphier, Panic Attack. The book is up at DennisPrager.com. Thank you again, Doctor.
Thanks so much for having me.